My name is Josh, and welcome to Hide and Seek Archives, a podcast where we talk about things supernatural, cryptid, or unexplained. But yeah, if you'd like to go ahead and tell us what happened.
Well, I can't remember what the year was. It was in the mid to late 90s. I know the month was August, just before dove season opened, which was September 1st here. And it was a really bright full moon night. And there was 7 of us down there at the river bottoms. We're just hanging out, and we heard this weird little chirping noise that we couldn't quite figure out what it was. So we decided to go for a little walk and try to figure out what the heck this noise was. These river bottoms are, a bunch of cottonwood trees, and then there's a wild currant and what they call skunkberry here. It's about anywhere 6 to 8 foot real dense brush with, little openings between them. As we were walking down through these old roads, we didn't need a flashlight or anything. It was so bright, but that whistling kept kind of ahead of us and off to the side as we wandered down through these roads. And we came out along this bank of the Snake River there, where it was a gravel road, just white as can be in that moonlight. And we started walking down that back towards where our trucks are parked at. And ahead of us, about probably 50 yards, I'd seen something look kind of like a beaver laying there on the road, You just noticed the movement there. As we kept getting closer, this thing finally it stood up. It was about 25 feet from us. It wasn't really big, about 4.5 feet tall. But it definitely stood up on 2 legs. It looked at us, tried to take 2-3 steps towards the brush, and then it changed directions and went back and jumped into the river and disappeared. It was the weirdest thing. I mean, it wasn't no way it could be a human. It moved completely different the way its body moved. Really, really quick. You could definitely see hair on it. You couldn't really make out any facial recognition or anything, but there was hair, and it's kind of a freaky little time there. Kind of scared the heck out of all of us.
Yeah.
There was, I believe, 4 girls in there. The one was kind of mad at the rest of us, so she was ahead of us. So this thing stood up probably 15 feet from her, and she ran all the way back to the vehicles, as hysterical, crying. And so we still not 100% sure, but everything I've seen on TV and everything, that's the only thing it could have been. As we were getting, that's one thing I forgot to mention, as we were getting closer to this thing, that whistling, it's like a chirp almost. It really got intense. I mean, there was 4 or 5 other creatures in there making that noise. And the closer we got to this, the more chirping, it was like we were getting really agitated. And, thinking back on that now, I wasn't so sure we didn't come across a young one they came across the river, and we just kind of come at the right time that we caught that one there, on the road. It was trying to hide. It was laying down like in a prone position behind this little clump. It's about a 3-foot tall clump of these wild daisies is what we call them, these little blue flowered things. So if we weren't walking down that road right towards it, that thing would have laid there, and we never would have ever seen it. It was kind of, thinking back on that, how so many people can walk right by something like that and never even know it was there.
Yeah. How tall do you think it was?
My best guess, I think it was about 4 feet tall.
Okay.
It wasn't really big. had that silhouette shape, that footage of the Gimlin photo footage of film, I guess.
Yeah.
It walked so similar to that. It was just, you couldn't mistake it for a person. It leaned too far forward. It was too fast. And that thing was a quick thing when he decided to go or head or whatever it was. But it definitely had 2 arms and 2 hands. It was on 2 feet. So,
And quite a few of you saw this thing.
yes.
Did y'all ever talk about it later, or did?
Yeah, we have through the years. Most of them don't want to go public with it. I mean, one of my closest friends, we had a little interview with whatever that Finding Bigfoot deal that he didn't want to go on camera. But he was with me also. It was probably 3 or 4 days before that we got ran out of those same river bottoms. A little bit different spot, but something just kind of almost hurt us out towards evening and throwing sticks at us, and it was that was more frightening than seeing that one there on the bank.
What happened with that?
Well, he just bought a brand new shotgun, so we went down, towards evening. We was gonna just shoot some starlings and stuff. It was on our way out. It was getting toward dusk when he stopped just ahead of me, and I figured out what the heck he stopped for. And he told me, man, there's something growling at me up here. I never did hear it, but every time we take about 4 steps, the brush would rattle around us or a stick would get thrown at us, and it just kept pushing us, like it was hurting us back to where the vehicles were parked. We ended up going out there, one of us forward, one of us backwards, because it got to the point where it was pretty frightening there. He said that growl wasn't really loud, but it was more of a rumble, more like he felt it than anything, and it really scared him pretty bad. So we had that experience, and then that one where we seen him right after that. And I'm wondering if there was like a family of them down there that year. I've never seen anything since then. But for being about 5 miles from the house, and not in typical Bigfoot territory or habitat, as you'd call it, it was kind of a surprise back then. We didn't have the internet like we do now, so we didn't know what the heck we ran into, other than the stuff we'd seen on TV and stuff like that. Over the years, it's become pretty obvious what we ran into that night.
And you said you saw it again, or are you just referencing back to when y'all saw it on the
No,
tour?
I'm just referencing back to the experience I said there at the beginning, but I know definitely something chased us out of them bottoms a couple days before that, but we had no idea even what the heck it was. So the next weekend when we ran into the one there on the bank, everything just kind of came together, and it's none of us will go down there at night anymore. We're all pretty scared of that.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like the one that y'all saw, like you said, might have been like a juvenile.
Yes, that's the only thing, thinking back, that's the only thing I can think of it being is there, because of all that chirping down below, there was some more down there. And I think this was the last one to cross, and if we happened to come up on that road, and it just kind of laid down to hide from us. The ones down in that brush were really agitated. That chirping just kept going on, and it had to be coming from, multiple animals. I don't know how many, 4, 5 maybe, but that ever since we've heard that chirping, I still hear that occasionally when I'm up, in the mountains and stuff. I'll hear that little chirp once in a while, and like when we pull into a camp or something, and you hear that coming off the hillside somewhere.
And when you say chirping, if you could describe it, how exactly would you describe that?
I mean, trying to make that noise is a type like that.
Okay, like
It's a little whistle chirp. It's not. It almost sounds like a bird, but it's got a different end to it.
mm-hmm.
The closest I could really say would be kind of like a cow elk when it chirps, but it's different. I mean, you can definitely tell the difference in them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and you said you were screamed at before?
Okay, yeah, this was quite a few years later. I mean, you want me to go through all the experience? Some of these, I mean, most of these don't have nothing, no visual or nothing, no footprints, but there was something definitely out there on two different camping times. Once with my family, we had it was about 4:35 in the morning. That worst smell you could ever imagine woke us up, and I'm not sure how to even describe that smell. It smelled like a bull elk in the rut smell mixed with a barnyard manure type of horrible, nasty smell. But this thing woke us up that night, and I usually keep stuff around the tent there where I know where it is on a white shirt, like the lighter for the fire,
mm-hmm.
and lantern, stuff like that. Well, when I got up, that was, of course, going to be found, and you could hear that whatever it was walking or moving around outside the tent. I didn't say walking because you just hear the branches move once in a while. But I got up and I finally got that fire going. As soon as the smoke came out of that top of the chimney there, that smell just completely disappeared. But you could hear the dogs. I mean, this is a big reunion, so there was probably 80 people up there.
Mm-hmm.
You can hear the dogs going off as that whatever it left up around the camp. So that was, that happened in June of that year. And that following October, me and that same friend that experienced the stuff before were elk hunting. And this place is way up high in the mountains. A lot of elk and a lot of deer right in there for the first 3 days we were there. And then first night, something come by, and it's about the same time, 4 to 5:30 in the morning. Same exact smell. Woke both of us up from from a dead sleep, and I just laid there and tried to hear what that was. Never did hear it, but that smell disappeared just suddenly, and my friend laying over there asked if I was awake, so we were both awake, just laying there, kind of in a paralyzed fear type of thing, but.
Mm-hmm.
But the strange thing was, we had this table we ate on. We were finding geodes, them round rocks with the crystals in them. We've been finding them all through our hunt. We had them laying there on our table. And that morning after we come back, he accused me of taking his rocks. And I'm like, I don't know why I would take your rocks. We've had them all sitting there. But we noticed about half of his little rocks were gone. Our serving spoon that we used to cook with was missing. And I think if I remember correctly, he lost a Leatherman that disappeared off that table. So the next night, exact same time, this thing comes back again. Same smell, same everything, and it did the exact same thing. We just laid there, and finally it just disappeared. The third night, it came back, and it was even a stronger smell, so it had been a lot closer to us. You could, again, hear little branches break. It was like it was stepping on them or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same weird smell, that same laying there, and just kind of a fear. And then we never had nothing else after that. But the weird thing was all the elk and deer that were there, there were deer everywhere and elk everywhere. There was not an animal left after that. We had 4 days left to hunt. We couldn't find an animal anywhere in that whole area.
Yeah,
So whatever the heck that was, it had to have or something to carry, those rocks and that spoon and that knife away.
Yeah.
I don't. That was one of our strangest ones.
Yeah, that is really strange. And it seemed to know exactly where to go every night.
Yes, it would come, at almost exact same time. And, through all these years we talked about that, it's almost like it would go wander its area there, and then it would come back to our little camp just before daylight and just kind of watch us. And then, it seemed like that's what it would do just before it went wherever it spent the day. But it was a strange experience there. And I forgot to add, while we were hunting, we had our little, our handheld radios that we keep in contact with. But there was somebody that came up that last day on that third night. So that next morning, as we were hunting, we could hear this guy on his radio talking to his friends, and he was saying, I think I see a bear up here, but it's not acting like a bear. And we sat there and we listened to that, and it just kind of like the chills ran down your back, because that's first thing we thought when we heard that. Oh man, you got one of them Bigfoots in camp again. But
yeah, that's definitely something you don't want to hear while you're out hunting.
No, and of course that guy never shot because couldn't tell what the heck it was. We talked to him a little bit, but he didn't really. He just said it was dark colored and moving through the trees, but he wasn't sure of it. He didn't. His first thought was it's not a bear, so he didn't shoot at it. And never seen it again. But so that was that little experience there. The one you're talking about where we heard the roaring stuff, that was I think that was like 2010 or somewhere around in there. 2012, somewhere in this area. But we went to an archery competition over in Twin Falls, and those mountains that's in the Sawtooth National Forest. Call them the South Hills, but we decided we just camp up there for the weekend. We had that same tent. We went into that area. The first night it was just me and the boys up there, and our first camp, it was kind of this place I didn't like. It was right on a main trail, I guess you'd call it. That came out on the logging road.
Mm-hmm.
And it just didn't feel comfortable. So that next morning we moved down into a kind of a little valley type of thing that's down below where we camped that night. The wife came up that day. We went to the archery shoot, and that night as we were sitting around the fire, you could hear this. I don't know how to describe it. It was like a moaning bellow type of. It wasn't nothing I'd heard before. You could hear it way off in the distance, and this call would last probably 30 seconds to 45 seconds. It was like the big yell type of sound.
Mm-hmm.
But it kept coming across the top of this ridge about every 60 seconds to a minute and a half. That thing would let out another one of them big moaning. I don't really know how to explain this thing. It's kind of like a bull cow when it makes that noise, and the range cow, that big bellow.
Mm-hmm.
And then you mix it with like someone yelling. This thing will last about 30 seconds long. It's almost like a howl type of sound. But as it would come down that ridge, you could hear that. It just kept getting closer and closer to us. And finally it got to where the dogs all got up and they went in the tent. I don't understand what the heck that is when they bark at everything else, but they all went and hid. It was about that time when the wife and the kids were getting kind of scared, so they were just going to go get in the tent. Well, as that thing was still howling up above us, it went past our camp and then it come down probably 50 yards down below us. And as all of a sudden, all them chirps started again, and there was a bunch of them. And it was so loud, that night. It was, and being so close to our tent, and as quiet as it was, and as dark as it was, those chirps were just really upsetting, I guess, as you call them. But
yeah.
the wife and the kid went and got in the truck. That's where they were going to stay that night. I sat up around the fire all night with my 12 gauge and just sat there, and that was just where I don't know what the heck was going on there. That thing had come across the top, and it was like a meeting place. Because man, that chirping was really loud, and there was quite a few of them all at the same time. And then it just went dead quiet. Never heard nothing again till that next morning, and that's when we got up and we were starting to pack camp because we just wanted to get out of there. Excuse me. But the kid, he was only probably about 8. First thing he did was, as we packing camp, he comes and goes, "Hey, something's up there across the way. They're hitting the tree." I just didn't even think about what the heck he was talking about. So then I started listening to him, and he'd smack a tree with a stick. And right directly after that, something across probably 100 yards across the thing there would hit a tree back. So then I kind of like, oh boy, this is really weird. And he would do that. He would hit it once, that it would answer with 1 knock. He'd hit the tree twice, it would answer with 2 knocks. And I got to the point where like, oh crap, we got to get the hell out of here because I'm not,
yeah.
This is unreal here. So we packed up and we left, and that's the last experience I've had. But I don't make it out like I used to. I got hurt, so I can't really walk like I used to. So
do you ever?
Those were the times, when I was real active, and we did a lot of time out in the mountains and stuff, that we ran into it. But I still do hear that little chirp occasionally, and it's always right as soon as we pull into a campsite or something, you get out, about within 5 minutes, you'll hear it chirp up on the mountain like that. But everybody else sounds just about like a bird, but there's definitely a difference to it.
Did you have you ever gotten a chance to ask the forestry people about any of this?
I've talked to a few Forest Service people, but most of them don't. They look at you like you're kind of crazy. It's hard to. No, I've went down to, what really got me going on this is when I went down to the ISU and Jeff Meldrum had a little museum there.
Yeah.
And, this was been years and years since our first experience of seeing that thing. So as we went through that, it really started to dawn on me, all the tree twist or whatever they call them, the twist offs where they twist the branches to mark their, I don't know how many times I've seen those things up in the wild hunting or something and never paid any attention to them till now. You start recognizing that kind of stuff. But
yeah.
But that chirp, I don't know. I mean, what the heck his name is? This runs around with Matt Moneymaker, Cliff. He replicated that same exact chirp to me too, so I know he's heard the exact same thing I've heard. I don't know. But it's definitely, I don't know if that's the way they communicate or it's a warning thing or what the heck it is, but
I don't know. I know, because I'm originally from Texas, and I had an experience backpacking with my father. We never had the chirping, but we had the whooping noise. All around us all night.
Yeah.
And we backpacked a good few miles in, so there was no leaving.
Yeah.
But I have heard the chirping from other stories before. So I find that really interesting. It seems like there might be so many different ways that they might communicate.
Well, I'm sure there is. But like I say, I don't know if that chirp's a warning or if it's just maybe like they're just whistling to each other like we do when we hunt once in a while. You know, when we're separated and you just let out a whistle and then your partner answers back. Or I have no idea what that is, but I can definitely recognize that. It's just kind of still puts, it makes the hair on your back stand up when you hear it. But,
Yeah.
and everybody keeps telling me they're real friendly creatures, but I don't, I wouldn't feel like I do when that happens if they were friendly. Cause
yeah.
I've hunted bear and everything else and never had that damn chills run up your back type of, that scares the heck out of you.
Yeah.
So it's
No, I know that feeling. Yeah, this is really interesting. And I know Idaho is not a huge state. But how far apart were these experiences?
okay, from the one down here in town on the river bottom, it's kind of a desert country. A lot of sagebrush, lava, a lot of lava flows. Hardly any water other than that's along the river and what's irrigated out, which they run through the canals and the ditches here, and then they pump them out, the water in the field with the sprinklers. But we're probably, I think it's about 120 miles to the west where these other experiences happen. So we're back, 120 miles up in the mountains now. Where I'm at's in the kind of a plain. These other experiences I had were all up in the mountains. That's mostly Idaho. After you get out of this plain, there's nothing but mountains as far as you can see. So it's, it's the one I was experienced about the smell the first time, and the second experience we had in October, there was about 20 miles difference between the two spots.
Oh, wow.
This last experience we had with the howling type of noise coming down the ridge and all the chirping, that was probably another 100 miles to the south from those other two experiences.
Okay, so there's a good distance between all.
Yeah.
I like to ask this to a lot of people I interview. What do you think Bigfoot is?
Well, to me, with that sighting, the actual visual sighting of them, they are definitely a being, they're an animal or primate or something. The way they moved and the way that one's hands were hanging down, but as it was swinging its arms, you could see the hands with it. So I know it's got to be something kind of like us. They're built so similar, but yet so different. There's not really a neck. There's nothing really, I guess, petite about the things. Even this little one was built big enough that it would have probably tore us all up if we tried to get involved with it.
Yeah.
But they're so fast. It's when I seen that thing of Patty the Gimlin film, it kind of, I don't know if they slowed that film down, but it doesn't move as fast as this one I see. Man, that thing was, it moved like a deer, but on 2 feet. So it was, but I definitely know that it's a being of some sort. I just don't know. I mean, it's here on Earth. It's a natural being, but
yeah.
I've thought about that a lot too, because it's something you just don't. With 99% of people have never even seen one or even know what they're around. But yet, when you've had an experience like that, especially where I went public with mine, and ended up on that whatever
Uh-huh.
But now, people I've worked with have told me their experiences, so I know all of us can't be seeing the same thing, kind of the same behaviors if this was so-called alien or whatever people try to make it to be.
Yeah.
You know, it's where these other people have seen them and the way they've told me their experiences. It's definitely an animal just like us. Where I mean, I'm not sure where it lives, but it's definitely got hands and can grab things. I know that. It's very smart. It's got to be to hide the way it does.
Yeah. Yeah, that was going to be my other question, if you thought they were intelligent based off what you've seen.
Yes, I would say, because, you know, even this little one trying to lay down and hide like that, there's, you know, we know animals. I mean, deer will hide like that, pheasants, but something that is definitely going to just lay there knowing, you know, if I stay here till they walk by, they'll never know I'm here. And I'm not going to show myself till I absolutely have to. You know, that little one kind of, to me, that was like somebody that didn't want to be known, but it got caught, and it had no other choice but to show itself.
Yeah, and get out of there.
Yeah.
And that trail you saw it on, have you been back on that trail?
You know, this area has changed so much in the last 10, 20 years that there's so many people down there. They made it into a recreation area, where before it was just a bunch of river bottom land that, you know, the county owned, and nobody went in there other than deer hunt once in a while. But yeah, I've been down there. I don't go down there at night still. My kids still laugh at me over that, but that trail hasn't changed much. It's basically like an old road, a berm across. They put a new bank on that river when it flooded before I can remember, but they built that river bank up, and they put a little gravel road on it. That road still looks exactly the same, all that white river bottom gravel with those little patches of, I call them wild daisy. I think they're what the heck, something Fleabane or something is where their real name is, but they're about 3 feet tall that time of year with little blue flowers all over on them. But that, you know, that's where that thing was laying under, and yeah, the road's still there. I know exactly the same spot it was, even after all these years, but in some place I don't really like going back to.
Yeah. Do you ever plan on going back out hunting?
With my condition, I always still go out a lot, but I'm not one to, now that I don't really walk around a lot. I drive my little side by side, and that's just not something very conductive to seeing things like that. So
yeah,
but I've had people tell me stories of seeing them alongside the road, you know, at night when they drove by, and they just had to turn around and go back and look again, and it was gone, but they swore that's exactly what it was. So I think they can be found anywhere. It's just being in the right place and knowing how to recognize it. Because, I mean, it's what that one guy told me. It looked like a bush standing there on the side of the road till we seen his face as we drove by. And so it's just, they have ways of disappearing in the open, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, they move pretty fast from what I've heard.
Yes.
If they hear something coming, they're going to get out of there.
Yeah, and I think, that one we seen was that way. I think like you said, I think they were coming across the river, which seems weird. Everybody, when you tell them, they're swim across the river, everybody looks at you like, what the heck, but that's the only way they can travel here, back and forth across the river. They have to go across it. And I think, like I said, they come across, the one was whistling when we first heard it. I think that whistle was their signal or something to come across the river. And as we walked around, we happened to catch in the group. I don't know if it was the naughty kid or what, but he got caught there on that open road. And
Yeah.
I say another 5 feet, we never would have known they were there.
Yeah, seems like he might still be figuring out how to hide.
Yeah. But yeah, that used to be some pretty wild country years ago when we seen that, but not anymore. There's so many people back in there, but it was a really thick, kind of like that mesquite stuff down in Texas. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yes.
That's what these bushes are kind of like. Not quite as tall and not about as thick though. So anything 8 feet tall is going to be hidden in that stuff really easy.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And from what I've heard, they seem to seek out thick areas like that.
Yes.
A lot easier to hide.
Yes. Now this one I was talking about when we were elk hunting, that's I gotta go back because I'm starting to remember a lot of stuff now that you got this coming out of me. But that we both had shot our deer. I think it was the third day up there. We had our elk located, and like I say, after we had that smell come to the camp, everything had got pushed out. As we were hunting above camp, we went in there probably another mile up, walking, following the trails, and we come to this big, I don't know how to even explain it. It's like a big meadow, but we were just about getting above tree line, and we thought we'd sit there and just kind of watch that evening. And we were both probably 100 yards apart from each other because we always hunt separate, kind of like that. But we were in the same area, and there was something definitely in there. Never seen nothing, never heard something, but you could feel it. I mean, it just like you were being watched type of feeling.
Uh-huh.
And as we came back to camp that night, we met up, and we had both experienced that. That was the weirdest place we'd ever been. And these meadows above them are a bunch of big cliffs and rocks and spires, and who the heck knows what else is up in there. And I don't know if that's where that creature, because I can't really say what it was. I didn't see it, but everything leads me to believe it was a Bigfoot. But I don't know if it was living up in there or staying in there and then coming down at night, doing its hunting or whatever, and then it would come visit our camp just before daylight, before it went back up into there. But that area gave us just the creeps, I guess you want to call it. It was. So I know those.
Just very unsettling.
Yes, unsettling. That's the perfect word for it. And I had that same feeling over in the Sawtooth when that bellowing and stuff come down that ridge, and then the chirping underneath, right below camp, and that was the same thing. Just to kind of, I guess, understand what our prey feels like when you're right there, because it wasn't the best. I wish there was. If I could have spent another couple days in that spot in the Sawtooth and actually looked for like footprints and stuff like that, but man, everybody was so freaked out. We just had to get out of there, and I've never been back. So,
and that definitely speaks a lot, especially you being outdoors all the time and hunting, and you getting that unsettling feeling. That's not something you just make, that you just bring onto yourself. When you're actually feeling that, something's not right. There's a difference between somebody who's never been out in the woods a lot, going out there being nervous and scared, and somebody who's actually been out hunting and experienced out in the woods. That speaks a lot.
Yeah, and it's like I said, I've hunted bear with archery, and I've never had that feeling. Even when I knew there was a pretty good sized bear right there. We live in grizzly country, of course, but I've never had that same feeling as these other experiences. And so that's what I'd say. I think these are not the cute little vegetarian type of things other people
Yeah, and especially, especially if you get that fear from something you can't even really see.
Yeah, you don't see it. Like I say, I used to, that was the outdoors was my whole life. Every free minute time I was either hunting or fishing or hiking or something. So I've seen a whole hell of a lot. Even in Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming, and I say I've been around grizzlies plenty of times. That puts the fear in you, but it's not the same fear as this thing these Bigfoot have. From what I believe, just thinking about, is the evolution of man.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we were born with that fear for a reason. Back in the old thousands of years ago, that we were probably hunted by the dang things at one time.
Possibly, yeah.
We evolved and they didn't, but or I guess I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but
yeah, and especially since they're really experienced out in the woods.
yes, we've got I live close to a reservation, the Shoshone Panic geese right on the edge of town here, but so of course I've known a lot of natives that talk about them. They told me that the red ones, which must have to be the ones with the red hair, are the mean ones, and the ones with the black or gray hair are the nice ones. I don't know what the heck, but that's what they swear by. And they say they'll see them up there on the reservation, which is a lot of the sagebrush mountains. Not a lot there, but they said they'll see them dragging a sagebrush behind them to cover their tracks, and so they are a very intelligent creature. I mean, they've got to be, and they also claim they migrate through here, which kind of makes me, because we've seen ours in late August, September, and these natives have told me that they start coming back out of the mountains and about that time, and then they migrate to the west, which is a lot of open lava country with the caves, and there's a lot of caves here that are unexplored. They're just big lava vents, that the lava quit coming through, so there's a big tube.
Mm-hmm.
They say they migrate to there in the winter, and then they head back up, to the mountains as the spring progresses, and that's when most of our sightings happen around here, is in the fall, and then again in April, March, or March and April, I guess. And
well, I really appreciate you coming on and telling us about your encounter.
yeah, that's been everybody knows about it. I'm not too shy to say what we.
I really appreciate you coming on and telling us about your encounter.
Yeah, that's been everybody knows about it. I'm not too shy to say what we've seen, but for people that don't know, I had somebody tell me just seen a monkey that escaped from. Well, we don't have the monkeys with zoos around here.
Uh-huh.
And I know it wasn't a monkey. It didn't move like a monkey. It didn't. This was a humanoid that was very intelligent and very dang fast. I mean, I've never seen anything that could move as fast as that thing when it wanted to. So
Yeah.
there's no way I could be mistaken for a person or a monkey out of the zoo, because I don't think monkeys can swim, from what I've been told. I think they seem like a rock, but
Yeah.
So it's there is something that's very real around here, and
I believe it.
Have you had any other reports from this part of the west, or has anybody called on to it from there?
It's been all over. I've had let's see, an episode I just released today. A guy actually saw an albino one in Alabama. When he was a kid out hunting. and he was by himself. He says he doesn't go by himself out anymore
I
after
don't
seeing
blame
that.
him.
um, I've also uh, talked to a guy the other day about he believes that Sasquatch use infrasound to put fear into people, and
That would go back to like what my friend was saying. That growl he heard, he said he felt it more than he heard it. But I say I was too far away from him to know.
yeah.
He said he could feel it go through his body, and it just stopped and dead. And he was so,
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of stories about the infrasound, and I'm wondering if that's related to that. Because there's been a lot of testing done on infrasound, and it can cause all kinds of issues like feeling sick and dizzy and
yeah.
increased anxiety, um, and if these things are able to do that, then that's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. That goes back to like I was saying, that feeling that you're just scared to death, and there's no reason why you'd get that till you brought up that that
Infrasound.
the infrasound. Yes, that like I said, I've never heard him growl or nothing like that, but I sure feel you feel it.
Yeah.
When you're by anything with any kind of experiment, you might not see it, but when I hear that chirp, and I'll hear a tree, a lot of people loves a woodpecker. I saw a woodpecker. It's one snap across the tree here once in a while, but.
And you said your story's been told on Finding Bigfoot?
Yeah, it's on, what is it, season 3, episode 1 or something like that, but I reported that. Like I say, there wasn't a lot of internet stuff when we first, when we had that experience. Years later, I kind of started like, well, what the heck, and started researching it a little bit. And I contacted that BFRO or whatever the heck it was to have a so-called field investigator come down, and they just dismissed it. So
you ever had any mysterious disappearances out in that direction?
There has been quite a few actually, but there's everybody just thinks they're abductions. I've told my kids that too. I go, the Indians out here always, that's their story, because they'll come and take your kids. And most of the ones that are disappearing here are all, 12 to 14 probably. It could be human trafficking, but there's always been, quite a few young people that just disappear in this area. And I've always thought the same thing, that because they don't find no remains, no nothing. It's something's getting them. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm say Bigfoot's got them, but
you ever had a chance to look into the missing 411?
I've looked into it just a little bit, and that's what kind of got me really thinking about that. Because we've got all this national forest out here that's, even where I'm at out here on the plains and lava fields, that anything could take anybody and you're gone forever.
Yeah.
So I have noticed that 411, a lot of them are coming from trailheads and, camping spots, recreation areas that they should be finding some kind of a trace of those people that are ending up missing like that.
Yeah, and especially.
So that's always made me wonder, especially after the Indians told me, we always tell our kids to stay in at night because of that. So.
Yeah, especially, I know I've heard a story where, somebody will turn a corner just for a second, and then the other person will come around and they're gone.
And gone, yeah.
Yeah, and I think my theory is that I believe it might have something to do with Bigfoot, and because these things move fast and they can move quiet.
They can move real quiet and fast. I mean, we had a little kid. He was probably 3 or 4. He disappeared, I'm going to say probably 5 years ago. Same way, he was in the camp with his parents and just disappeared. They have not found around. I mean, they've taken cadaver dogs. They've had every kind of thing you can imagine searching for this kid. Of course, they blame it on the parents, of course, but
Yeah.
no arrests were ever made. But as soon as that happened, I'm just like, that could have been. Everybody says, well, it's probably wolves, but I've never had an issue with the wolves being. They leave the traces.
Yeah, exactly.
This kid just disappeared without. I mean, no one's seen him. This is in 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, not a trace at all of him. And we've had a couple. There's one up in Salmon. That's been probably 20 years ago. Another young girl that just disappeared. So it makes you wonder.
That's why I always tell everybody, make sure you go with somebody, or you keep your eyes on each other.
Yeah, that's what I told the kids. My youngest now is 14, but when they were younger, especially when we're up in the mountains and stuff, camping all the time, I told them, don't go wandering around out here at night. There's too many things out here that can get you, and that was what I always worried about. But even now, where most of them are grown, and I've got stories of hunting at night, and dragging deer out through the black and here and stuff following you, but you don't know what the heck it is. I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
I told them there's stuff out here. I mean, they all know the Bigfoot stories I've got and what I've told them, but there's a heck of a lot of other things out there in the wilds that will get you too. But
there are, and in Texas, we have those armadillos. Man, they can really make some noise. You would think a huge bear was tromping through the woods, because they sit there and they just throwing the leaves around, scuffling, and you're like, what is that? And then this little armadillo comes out.
Armadillo comes. See, we have that trouble with our red squirrels are that way. It sounds like a freight train coming through. You're dropping pine cones and everything, but. Like you say, a bear, I don't hardly ever hear a bear. I mean, you can see them, but you don't hear them.
Yeah.
They got a really soft feet. They can move around pretty quietly, and I think that's with any big predator. And when they bring back to Bigfoot something that big, they can move that quietly and be unseen. It's pretty dumbfounding, I guess, to your head how something like that can be undetected.
Yeah.
Especially after you see one, that little one we seen didn't make a bit of noise. Even on them rocks, didn't make any noise at all.
And that's just incredible to me. These things must be so heavy, how they cannot, move stuff around and make all this noise. How I don't.
This little one, I don't know if this is anything. I've brought this up several times. When it was running, it wasn't like it was on its whole feet. It was up kind of like on the balls of its feet. So its heel was just off, like it was like tiptoeing kind of. And that's always stuck with me. I wonder if that's how they can get by without making so much noise when they're moving fast. I mean, of course you see the big footprints like we do when we walk normal, but
yeah.
But to be quiet, I mean, we've done that too. Even as humans, when you're trying to sneak up on people, you're on your balls of your feet, walking really quiet. And I wonder if that's how they. Because this little thing, when he got up, it was three little steps, but he was up, kind of like he was trying to tiptoe and be real quiet, and then he turned around and ran the other way towards the river, real quiet, on them same tiptoe type things, but so he had a funny little gait to it when he was trying to do that, but like I say, it never made no noise, didn't disturb any rocks at all. And the thing, I didn't even hear it jump in the river, but we kind of checked that as we went by. You could definitely see there was nothing there when we had to go by that spot. So, it's fascinating how they don't make any noise like that.
And I've heard stories where people will see them and then hear them kind of walk away and then just stop, and then they'll kind of look and see where did they go. Well, in reality, they're still there. They're just hiding.
Yeah, they're hiding, and I kind of demonstrated that while because I'll go over here, tell you where I'm kind of going. You try to find me, and then just laying behind a little, laying in a low spot, not moving. Nobody knows where you're at unless you walk right up on top of them. You never see them. And this old Indian guy used to talk to you around here. He always told me, well, they turn into cedar bushes. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? So that's what we were told. But I guess when you think about them, with that hair, and they just stop and stand still, they're almost in the shape of a big cedar bush.
Yeah, and you could walk right by it and not even know it.
Well, I mean, at a distance at 50 feet, if they didn't move, you'd never even notice them there.
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating thing. I wish I had more. Now that I'm fascinated all the time in the world to go look at them, I can't do it,
Yeah.
With my disability, but I can see why people get, like Meldrum and all that, people get so involved in it now, because it is so fascinating when you...
It is, and that's one of the reasons I do this. I love hearing people's stories, and I'm always learning something different by hearing other people's stories and kind of connecting in dots. Not necessarily saying that's what it is, but
it's hard to connect the dots. Like I say, I've heard so many dang stories out from people that have come out since I've talked to that little show I did, but they've never ever told anybody they see them because they thought they'd be laughed at,
Yeah. And there's probably a lot of people out there still that just don't even want to talk about it because they think they're going to be made fun of, or they might think maybe I'm seeing stuff,
A lot of people can't believe what they see, we've got all kinds of sightings here in the state now that I've kind of started researching a little bit that never even heard of growing up, my sister said, I don't know if I say it wasn't there, but she never seen it. But she said her kids, when they were little, fed all her hot dogs to something. She told them to quit feeding the hot dogs to the hill. I can't remember what she said. They said, no, it's not we're putting it in its hands. So it kind of scared her to death. But, of course, those kids can't remember much. They were just 2, 3 years old.
Yeah.
And she said they took all the hot dogs out of her trailer and fed them to this animal that supposedly was grabbing them with their hand, but I don't know. That's something she'd have to tell for sure. But
yeah, that definitely sounds interesting.
But yeah, I know. Like I said, I know they're a real being. There's no doubt in my mind over that. Very intelligent. They know how to reason.
And I've heard reports that they can get up to near 15 feet. Sometimes I hear them bigger. But
now that you brought that, I think I mentioned that to you in my little message. But before we had that experience down there, and got chased out of the river bottoms, I've been scouting for deer down there most of the summer, and I ran into. Oh, it was probably a cedar. This is actually a cedar tree, probably a 30-foot cedar tree. But there were branches. I always wondered what the heck did that. There was branches as far up as I could reach with a longbow that had been pulled off this tree. Not cut off, but actually pulled off the tree, and no branches on the ground. They took them whatever did with them, and took the branches. And now that you're saying a 15-foot tall creature, I mean, that kind of brings that to mind too, that they had something that big could reach up that high and pull that. But I've always wondered about that tree I've seen down there. I never could figure out what did that.
And then on top of that, I hear that I've heard from natives that they spend about 80% of their time up in the trees.
Well, that could very well why they disappear so fast.
Yeah, that and another way they can move pretty quick, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Without being heard.
Yeah, fascinating.
It is, and hearing all these different things, it's hard to tell what's what, and it's all you can do is base it off of what you've experienced.
Yeah. more or less believe because people want to make up something so weird.
Yeah.
It's like the ones where this great big 12-footer come walking across my yard and looked at my window. That kind of, I don't have a hard time with them sometimes unless the person's still scared to death about it. But I think there's a lot of fake stories out there too.
I'm sure there is. People want their 10 minutes of fame.
Yeah.
But, all you can do is just listen and, and decide for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I think if you go out looking for it, you won't find it. It's the ones that they just happen to be in the wrong spot at the right time, I guess.
Yeah, mostly catching them off guard.
Yeah. And it's, I bought a trail camera years ago just to put by my camp because I was like, God, this can't keep going on. That's been quite a few years ago when I did that because we were having one stupid experience after another, I'm like, I'm going to put an end to this and put a camera up there because there's not a picture of one. And I don't know if that's what's finally ended all this or if it's just me not being out like I used to. But
yeah.
But that's my deterrent is putting a trail camera up pointed towards the trailer.
Yeah, they don't seem to like to be around those, so that's a good deterrent. The fact they can recognize what that is kind of tells you how intelligent they really are.
Yeah, and then it's I've always wondered how the heck you can see one of them trail cameras, but I don't know how many of those I have found. It's just they got a little glint of light or something that don't look right, and there's a trail camera there, so I know they can see that. Especially
if they're nocturnal and they can see a lot better at night, they'll see stuff that we can't even perceive.
These, like I say, they're very intelligent animals. They've got to have a good brain on them to see stuff like that, because I'm sure if they just don't come within 50 yards of your camp or whatever, and they just scan every square inch of that looking for something out of the ordinary before they do come in to investigate. But
yeah, or they just watch you and you don't even know they're watching.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what was happening around our tents those couple times. I think that smell happens when they know you're awake. And like I say, it just woke us up from a dead sleep, but I don't think it was the smell. I think it was just that feeling you get, and as soon as it knew we were awake, that nervousness, I guess, caused it, that stink to come out. It, I guess, kind of like us sweating under pressure. So
kind of their deterrent.
Yeah. So that was, that's what I always wondered. They just sit around there curious, and then, oh crap, I'm caught, and
yeah.
But they're definitely real.
Yeah, they are. But well, I thank you for coming on.
Oh, no problem.
It was really good talking with you. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, this is the first one I've talked to that was actually kind of enjoyable, kind of a rehearsed type of deal.
No, it's that's why I like doing this. It's basically just two people talking and somebody telling their story. That's that's just how I want to keep it. I don't like to rehearse anything. If there's something I don't like, I'll just remove it.
Okay, that sounds good.
But
thank you for this. I had quite a good time doing this. So.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I had a good time speaking with you. I hope we get a chance to do it again.
And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Yeah,
and a special thanks for Troy for going out of his way to tell us about his encounter. If y'all get a chance, y'all should go on to Finding Bigfoot on the episode he mentioned and check out his encounter. And if you would like to be on Hide and Seek Archives, you can email me at hideandseekarchives@gmail.com. I hope y'all have a wonderful Christmas, and I will talk to y'all next Tuesday.
Truth has been buried, held down by the hand that refuses to carry the burden you don't. The lies, do you hear me? The insult, the white flag you refuse to carry. I'm letting you go, and all that you showed me, I'm letting you know that you don't control me. The feeling is cold, and life is unfolding, reckless and weary. I'm desperately holding on, so you can't get a word in. It's because I don't care what you think. Don't be alone inside a world that's